Hello. Good
Hello.
afternoon. Hope everyone had a great weekend and even better Monday.
That's right. So Stephen and I were talking about how my tank went a week without CO2 because, my CO2 ran out on Monday.
It must have
But
been a
it
really, really painful week.
was fine. Nothing happened except you can notice that my plants are not as red. So, and Sunday they were even less red, but after even one day of CO2, they're perking back up. So if you want to turn your plants red, easy iron is the way to do it.
Like, how much iron do I add with my CO2?
Yeah. No, so CO2 and proper nutrition is really what it takes. And the biggest thing is CO2 really helps turn your plants red. And light, you need adequate light. But I think that's
Like,
kind of more of a given these days in that everybody has LED lights. It's a little easier. But yeah, CO2 makes your plants red.
also nutrient deprivation, which not a fan of.
Not a fan. Because they might be red, but they're also weak and brittle. And
Yeah.
yeah. So Only Way asks, have I ever used safety sorb as a substrate? Well, I am actually using it in my pond. I have never used it before.
How's it going?
Um, I do not recommend it for an aquarium. So
Mm.
when you open up the bag, it's dusty AF. So it's really pulverized. It's like really crushed and pulverized. It's not like distinct grains like fluoride is. So maybe some bags of it aren't, but the two bags that I got are really pulverized. Um, so that tells me that there's probably a lot of inconsistency in the product, which it's not marketed for aquariums. It's
Right.
marketed to clean up oil spills, right? So who cares if it's a
Yeah.
little powdery and dusty for that? Um, and also it within like a few days it turns to mud. It's turns soft. Now for what I'm using it for in my pond, I don't care at all. I'm not uprooting anything. I'm not
Did you
kicking
cap it
stuff.
with gravel or anything like that?
uh some places yes, some places no. I have these planting pockets that I just put it in straight,
Mm.
and I didn't cap it. But I'm also not like, I'm not pulling the plants out of there. I planted them one time and that's it. But in a home aquarium, I'm uprooting things,
All the time. Me
I'm
too.
moving things around. I mean, not as much as some people because I don't rescape that often, but still. So I don't recommend it at all. And also,
I
it's kind
mean,
of
if you don't
lightweight.
have a lot of stem plants, but even with
Yeah,
stem plants, when you have to do maintenance, you have to take those bottoms out and
yeah,
either toss them or try to put them in a farm and
yeah.
revive them. But they get pretty ratty after a while.
So yeah, I really don't recommend it. The only cheap substrate I would recommend would be like black diamond blasting sand, which is really, really cheap. I don't personally use it. But if you watch Amazon Prime, Fluval Stratum goes on sale
Oh yeah,
a couple times a year. It was just on sale for Prime Day for a very, very cheap price. And I think that's definitely your best value. And it's a very, very good substrate. So if you want to
hmm
save money, that's what I would do. I do not recommend Safety Zorb. Will I use it in my pond again? Yeah, sure. Why not? It serves a purpose for that. I don't.
When you added it to your pond, did it cloud up the water and did it
Yes.
go away after like a day or two?
Yeah, it clouded it up. I mean, it took a couple days for it to clear up, but I'm not like running a ton of filtration in a pond, so there's not a ton of circulation. I do have some little pumps going, but yeah, I just don't recommend Safety Zorb. I know there are other people who do recommend it, but I don't think it's a consistent product.
Yeah. So what about cat litter
I also use cat litter in a pond. I do
for the
not
lily, right?
recommend it at all in an aquarium. Yeah, I think it's really, really good for ponds. I use For my water lilies and lotuses, I'm using like 4 parts kitty litter, non-clump, not the clumping type, unscented. It's called Paws and Claws. You can get it from Tractor Supply with 1 part cheap topsoil. So 4 parts kitty litter, 1 part cheap topsoil. And it's amazing. It's a great substrate for water lilies. It turns to mud, which is nice and soft for the roots to form through. It's the lotuses. I've never had lotuses do so well. They have so many buds. I've had so many flowers.
Nice.
Water lilies are doing really, really well. So CoreWorks says he thinks that it's more consistent than Safety's Orb. Oh, I 100% believe that.
Still gross though, isn't it? Like in the
Yeah, it's a really gross gray color. I would not use it in a tank. And it does turn to mud. It turns to mud. But it has like a more consistent grain size because, you know, it has to be more consistent to be useful as cat litter. Whereas like Safety's Orb, it's marketed to clean up oil spills. It doesn't need to have consistent grains. So they don't need that kind of manufacturing rigor in their process. So I would not recommend either substrate in an aquarium because they will turn to mud. And but they have a really high cation exchange capacity, which means they can pull positively charged ions out of the water column, so they'll be available for your roots. And if you put fertilizers like root tabs, I use pond tabs in my pond, or I use like a granular fertilizer when I first plant them. It's you know, it's a nice product for ponds. Both of them work really, really well for ponds. Would not use them in a tank. So
yeah, I like aquarium products marketed for aquariums in some instances.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I'm going on like almost 5 years now with this substrate. No, 4 years with this substrate. This is Fluval stratum in this tank. I mean, look at how great it looks. It looks great.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, like the stratum, maybe it exhausts itself, but like at that point, you got so many damn fish in there, and you can
fertilize.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a substrate is not a license to never fertilize. This is a closed system. You know, it's not like out in the landscape where if you have good quality soil, you don't really need to fertilize. But in a tank, you do. It's a closed system. They're going to exhaust their nutrients. So you have to add more. And the easiest way to add more is just to fertilize the water column. You can use root tabs, but honestly, water column ferts work way better. So... Oh, Oinky, don't leave just yet. First of all, I gotta point out, I got a surprise in the mail today. Maybe you can see it.
Nice.
Oinky sent me this present. It says Master Knitter because I like to knit as a hobby. But thank you so much.
Oinky is always doing amazing stuff like that. She's very thoughtful.
It just made my day. Thank you so much. It was very sweet of you. So,
and I don't know. The offish, SEK. What is
Swedish kroners? Are those Swedish?
I think that's it. Yeah. And
thank 27 you. Of them. I don't know how many that is, but it's
doesn't matter.
But
much appreciated.
It's very sweet. Thank you very much. So Mike asked, have either of us used a calcined clay like Turfus Pro MVP used for baseball infields as a substrate? If so, what are your thoughts? If not, have you seen tanks that have used it? I have used it. I've used Turfus Pro League. And I've used, I don't think they make it anymore. It was called Soil Master Select. It was for conditioning baseball fields. And it's like, it's a lot like fluorite. I don't like it. I've used it. It grows plants. What I don't like about it is it's so fucking dusty.
Yeah.
And it's very, very lightweight. So it's very hard to root plants in. It just kind of floats up really easy. For the Soil Master Select that I used, it was like 99 parts like gray black and 1 part brick red. So you had these like little red flecks throughout it, which whatever. But yeah, it was okay. I would never use it again. It is very, very cheap. It does grow plants. It has a high cation exchange capacity, but
See,
I just don't want to use it anymore. I mean, I
if
just
I couldn't
really like
afford
Aquasoil.
stratum, I think I would just get sand. Like, and
So,
it's not going to store
yeah,
nutrients. I'll use root tabs. I don't want to deal with cloudy
yeah.
ass water. I don't want I don't want tannins. I don't want any of that crap in my display
Yep.
tanks. I
I don't
want
I don't
crystal
want to deal
clear
with
water.
that. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I have used black diamond sand. It's fine.
Yeah, I got it in several tanks.
I like Aquasoil better. I'm
Hmm.
probably always going to use Aquasoil right now. I don't have 10,000 takes. Um, so yeah. Zenny says, I will admit I thought it said Master Kittens and didn't quite. I thought it said Master Kittens 2 for a second, but no, it says Master Knitter.
Scotty, I'll probably at the latest hour and a half. So just, I mean, I don't know.
I don't
It
know.
might
We
end
at a
at an
certain
hour
point
20.
we get a certain point we get hungry.
Yeah,
I mean,
hunger
yeah.
sets in.
I know.
Let's see. Nathan said, so I got a comment on a vid saying that the sponge filter is pretty much wasting the CO2. Any truth to the statement? Not all of the CO2, but
No. I mean, here's the thing. When you have bubbling at your surface, when you have agitation at your surface, you are going to have more gas exchange at the surface of your water,
mhm,
which means that some CO2 is going to be lost to the atmosphere. However, your fish need oxygen, so it's very, very beneficial to your fish to have that circulation. And you can always inject more CO2 because it turns out CO2 is cheap. So it really doesn't matter. And it's so beneficial to your fish to have some sort of agitation at the surface, whether it's a
yeah.
sponge filter. I'm not a sponge filter person. I don't like the aesthetics of them, but they work fine. I like spray bars at the surface of the water. I've also used lily pipes at the surface of my water. And I mean, if top aquascapers have circulation in their tanks at the surface, that's good enough for me.
I am pro spray bar.
Yeah,
That's my
I like
favorite
spray bars.
way
Yeah,
to introduce water to the tank.
and I do too. But no.
Mm,
So is some of your CO2 being wasted? Yeah, but you can inject more. So who cares? CO2 is cheap.
yeah. I mean, if you've got that reaction system, it's the more you introduce, the more often you gotta refresh that thing. But just save up for pressurized canister, and then it becomes a non-issue. Just
Not an
open the needle
issue.
valve slightly more.
Not an issue. Yeah. I mean, I could turn my CO2 up way more and completely gas out my fish and they could die if I wanted. So wasting CO2 is not really an issue. Now, when I lived in Iowa and my KH was so incredibly high, maybe it was an issue then, but I still like a spray bar because fish need oxygen. And
Yeah,
it's good for them to have that gas exchange. And if you don't have something breaking the surface of the water, you get like an oily protein film on the top. And that's not good for your fish or for aesthetics.
I get that even in the tanks where the spray bar is like when I refill a tank and I just fill it a little bit too high and the spray bar is a couple inches down
Mm-hmm.
into
Yeah.
the water, I get that film on top.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't want your spray bar too high or it gets like splashy and then you have to top off all the
And the
time.
noise. I don't like the noise.
Yeah, I
So
don't like the noise either. I like mine just rippling at the surface. That's what I go
mhm.
for. If you like sponge filters work just fine. I just don't like the look of them and they take up room in the tank.
Exactly. They take up too much plant space.
Yeah. So, but there's nothing wrong with them.
So Cora said, I've found these compost systems that are used to increase yield in greenhouses and grow tents that use an air pump to an enclosed bucket or barrel for compost and then another air line out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen so many like composting hacks, but it seems like everybody always just goes back to like turning your pile with a fork, like a garden fork.
Mhm.
Because you need to turn over your compost frequently to keep it aerobic, the bacteria aerobic, and that will make it nice and hot because the the bacteria will be metabolizing a lot, and that'll heat it up and it'll compost faster and compost better. So the more you turn your compost pile, the better it will work. So I don't know, maybe it will work. I mean, I'm interested to see what you think about it, but from everything I've seen, and I don't personally compost because I don't have the space, but it just seems like there's really no shortcut for just getting out there with a fork and turning it. So,
I'm just
but
imagining a little fork.
and not like a dinner fork, like a big like a pitchfork.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've even made like these like compost stirrers and like all these, they have like compost tumblers and all kinds of gadgetry. But it seems like everybody just goes back to a pile and a pitchfork, which is pretty low tech. But try it out, CoreWorks, and let us know how it goes because, you know, I'm all for shortcuts. Let's see how
Yeah.
it goes.
He said, I'm trying not to start new, potentially stinky projects before we move. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't help yourself. We know how you are. We know how you are.
So we got Mike. Mike just has like some sort of detector meter thing. It's like let's find all the misinformation and go to it. So he says a big channel recently released a plant video, and the user stated they don't like aquasoil type substrates because they contain too many nutrients, and they'd rather use root tabs to supply as many nutrients as their tank was utilizing. Thoughts on their take and on substrate leaching excessive nutrients into the water column. I mean, think
That's
stratum doesn't
really
really
like,
have that much in
no,
nutrients to
I would
begin with.
say UNS Aquasoil is a lot richer. And like, I've never used ADA, but that's supposed to be richer.
That's
And when
supposed
I
to be like
say
the ammonia
richer,
leaching
yeah,
kind.
and that's when I say richer, I mean more ammonia. I don't know. I just find the irony of that kind of funny, where they don't like a substrate because it has too many nutrients, so they'd rather like add a bunch of nutrients. Okay. The reason I like aquasoils, whether it's UNS Contrasoil or Aquasoil, or I've never used ADA, but I would use it, or Tropica, is not because of the nutrients they contain. I mean, yes, that's a nice little burst to get you going, but I like it because of the cation exchange capacity,
Right.
which is the future of your substrate. That's that ability to pull positively charged ions from the water column to deliver them to your plants at their roots.
So what are those
So
positively charged ions include? Calcium, magnesium,
magnesium,
potassium, iron.
iron. Yeah, no, those are all things your plants need. So
Yep.
not nitrate. Nitrate is negatively charged.
But you get plenty of nitrates from plenty of other sources.
Well, yeah, and I add them.
Right.
I add them. So,
But
and
rainbows are good at making the stuff that turns into nitrates.
exactly. Cation exchange capacity is really important in your outdoor soil also, which is why you want a soil that has some clay in it, but not too much, lots of organic matter, but not too much. So,
So Jeff says one of the biggest problems is taking input from too many people at the same time. Follow one path at a time, become successful at that path, or scrap it, start the next path. I don't do it that way. I do a
Oh,
lot of different
yeah.
things at once in different tanks.
Yeah. Yeah,
And some,
I don't do that. I mean, I kind of take things that I like from different sources and I do things that like the way I want to do them. And I'm guided by my own experience and my own education, probably more than anything, my own research, but I take a lot from some of the big aquascapers, but I don't aquascape the way they do, right? Because I want something long term. Um, I take a lot from like the top rainbow fish breeders, but I don't breed rainbow fish, so not everything, but I
yeah.
keep my fish the way they do. So I try to take bits and pieces from different places.
Yep. And I don't think any single person, especially not on social media, has the full picture of how things should be done. No one has like the exact perfect right way.
Yeah.
So
And if a person out there says that they know everything and that they're not still learning and still changing and still growing, then don't listen to them. I mean, I'm still
yeah.
changing how I do things. I changed some things in my ponds this year for the better. I switched my pond substrates this year for the better because I saw Nancy B had done it differently and I wanted mine to look like hers. So I tried it out and it's been successful. So I learned a new thing. Um, I don't know everything and I never will.
I hope not. I don't know
Yeah.
everything at some point where I'm just like, well, I have absorbed all the knowledge. I know all fish keeping things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem is whenever you have a stream like ours and others, and you start to feel the need to have an answer to every question instead of just saying, I don't know, and maybe having someone they could go to
Yeah.
instead of like being everyone wants to be like the floating head, all knowing, powerful being on stream that can just answer every
Flo-
question.
Just float my head a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you ask me questions about how to breed fish,
Depends on the fish for me, and it's
I
very
and
few
for me,
that I can
I
answer.
can breed like Medaka rice fish only because I do nothing.
Put some
I'm
water
not
in there.
Yeah, I'm not really I don't have expertise in that. So or like how to be like a competition aquascaper. I mean, I guess I've done one aquascaping competition, but not like one where you submit photographs. That's a whole different game. I don't know how to do that. I mean, I've seen people on the internet do it, but I've never done it. So I can't like yeah. Is there anything
Um,
what are you talking
yeah.
about, Jenny?
So she's talking. She was saying, "What about Contrasoil? I swear it's worse in terms of nutrient leaching, and it is. It
Yeah,
definitely.
I would say that like I've never had such thick and lush growth of foreground plants with UNS Contrasoil. However, I think I've never had such bad algae in a tank. And part of that I think might be ammonia leaching. If I were to use it again, which I'm not opposed to, I think it needs to have a very mature filter, which this was a new tank, so it didn't. I did do water changes every day for the first week, and then every other day the second week, and then every third day the third week. So I did do that, and I think that helps. But I think that if I were to use it again, I would need to bump that up. I think I would maybe need to do water changes like maybe twice a day the first week.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
it's a good idea when you
yeah,
start a new tank just to do as many water changes as you can. Like I don't think there is
yeah.
a maximum amount of water changes
No, I would
you can
agree with
do.
that. And it's not going to harm your developing filter because your filter bacteria exist in a biofilm. right? They're coating your media, they're coating
Hmm.
the tank, they're coating the walls of the tank, the substrate, the plants themselves. Very little of that bacteria exists free in the water column. So you don't have to worry about that. I think that would have helped. But
Yeah.
when I do tear down this tank and restart it, which maybe I'll do this fall, I should do this fall because I'm tired of looking at it. I think I'm going to go back to Fluval stratum because also I
Imagine
have a bunch
if,
of Fluval stratum,
yeah.
so I should use it up.
Imagine if stratum leach. I just realized like this tank behind me. So like this, here we go. Trying to orient. So like that amount, that is all stratum. There's no sand or anything. That's pure stratum. It's like probably the deepest substrate I have, and it took off just fine. And all
Yeah,
those crypts are very, very nicely
yeah.
deeply rooted in
I've
there.
grown good foregrounds in both of these takes. So it was noticeable how lush
Hmm.
the growth was with the UNS take. So Uncle Smiley asked,
What is
what is the most likely cause of brown hair algae?
what is brown hair algae?
So do you mean diatoms? It's not really hair so much
Yeah,
as
I was
like
wondering
the
if there's something else.
soft stuff.
I mean, I've certainly had green hair algae, and it was so tangled up in mulm and stuff that it was brown. Staghorn is kind
Yeah,
of brownish grayish.
kind of. Yeah, it's more blackish gray.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, um, brown algae, it's not really hair algae, it's kind of soft and falls apart. But to me, like new tanks will go through a brown algae phase and they kind of just get past it. Some people say it's because you have too many silicates in your water. Ugh, whatever. I mean, like would keep using the same water for water changes and it would just go away. I
yeah,
think it's just a stage that a developing ecosystem goes through. And in my experience, that one doesn't bother me because it does go away. To me,
yeah.
the biggest bother is hair algae. Like, I think that's the hardest one for me to defeat because I don't have BBA. I don't know why. This water just doesn't grow BBA. In other places I've lived, BBA is a huge problem, which is
I have a
black.
little bit of BBA in some tanks, and I still would say hair algae is worse, just
Yeah,
because hair algae. There is no stage where like I'm done making hair algae. This tank is officially like seasoned. Like no,
yeah,
if you change something, especially when your water is kind of like not the best for growing plants, just okay,
yeah,
it's harder to get in balance. And so you change
yeah.
one little thing, and hair algae's like, "What's up?"
I mean, this tank went through a brief phase of a little bit of hair algae. I cut the photo period a bit, and it just got past it, and it's been great for a couple years now. But my little tank over there, which I'm not showing, but oh god, there is no saving that tank. There is just it is fundamentally flawed in how I've set it up.
Buy
Whether
100 Amano shrimp and see what happens.
maybe it has got some fundamental flaw that I cannot. Yeah,
Screaming amount of light, maybe. I mean, the
I mean,
Chihiro.
I
What
mean,
what do you have the Chihiro set at?
or like the circulation isn't good,
Yeah.
or I don't know. There is a fundamental flaw with it that I just need to start over.
See. A little bit behind in comments. So Sketty was asking, what did you switch to? I think maybe she's asking about switching your pots to safety zorb and kitty litter.
Yeah, so I was using sand and cheap topsoil for my water lilies. And now I am using 4 parts kitty litter, 1 part cheap topsoil, In Iowa, you could just use dirt from your yard. It's very good dirt with 4 parts of kitty litter. Because where Sarah lives, she's really nice soil. Unlike you have like heavy clay.
Hmm.
So she would have to mix it with clay. But for you could just use straight dirt from your yard because it's like really heavy clay. So, and Sarah, I need to divide a water lily, my pink beauty. And if you give me your address on Instagram, I will send you one because I have to divide it. It's out of control.
Only way. So, have you ever tried the CO2 reactor from Greenleaf Aquariums, like an external diffuser for mixing the CO2 swirling water? So you
Yeah.
use the inline diffusers, not the
Yes.
reactors.
I did start out with the GLA reactor and I accidentally bought the wrong size of it for my
Uh,
filter. And I tried to like rig it to get it to work and it leaked and I hated it. And I'm just like, no. And now I always use these guys. I really like, this is from Nylock G. This is an inline diffuser. This is what I like.
that's what I used to mostly.
Yeah. And I have this other one out because we were thinking of changing this one out because it was kind of clogged this weekend, but it unclogged itself. So we
Nice.
didn't. But
And I
yeah,
have a reactor in the 90-gallon. But I just built it. It's the Rex Griggs type
yeah,
reactor for an FX6.
yeah, and those work well. I would
Mhm.
say the GLA one, I bought the wrong size. So buy the right size and it would probably work just fine. But I bought the wrong size. So yeah, don't buy the wrong size.
So yeah, Uncle Smiley said hair algae, but it's brown. I wonder if it's just like kind of like dirty hair algae, if you like kind of mess with it and rinse it out. Because I don't know if I've ever seen like brown hair algae that wasn't just dead hair algae.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, no matter what it is, it's really hard to say what causes algae.
Yeah,
You
there is
know,
no single nutrient that can be attributed to a specific
yeah.
algae, as
And
much as people would like to believe
yeah,
they've
I mean, and
narrowed it
lots of
down.
people will be like, oh, it's because you have an excess of phosphates or a
Not
deficiency
enough.
of
Yeah.
phosphate. Anyone who tells you that is selling something because they don't know. They
Or
don't have
they
any,
read the forum post that said that like 12 years ago.
yeah, there's no empirical studies showing that, and those that the empirical studies that there are come from lake biology. So if you have an excess of nutrients in a lake, it does cause what's called eutrophication, which is where it chokes out with algae and that depletes the oxygen from the body of water as it dies, and then the fish all die. So, but that's because that lake is supposed to be very low in nutrients. That's its default state. That's how it's supposed to be. And so you change something. But your aquarium, it needs nutrients, so your plants aren't going to grow. So I would say that algae is caused by something out of balance. Too little, too much light, not enough light to get your plants growing well, and it's impossible to say exactly what that is. My policy usually, if I have algae cropping up and in a tank that's mature, it's a sign that I need to clean my filter.
Yeah.
So, you know, I clean my FX6 twice a year. Maybe I should do it more than that, but I do it twice a year. I don't have plecos, so I do
I
it
mean,
twice.
algae just it likes the things that the plants aren't able to use for whatever reason, whether they can't, there's not enough light or
Yeah.
there's not enough CO2. Usually it is a because CO2 being the limiting factor, it's CO2 is an issue. And like
Yeah.
the ultimate solution to fighting algae is growing the plants.
Yeah, and growing the healthiest, strongest plants you can. If you have a newer tank, I would say cut your light. Either cut the intensity, raise it up, drop your photo period a bit
Mhm.
for a little while. You don't want to drop to 0 because then your plants won't grow, and then, they're not going to do well, and that's going to defeat your purpose. But if it's really, really bad, you can do a blackout
Yeah.
for a little while, like a week. You could put like a sheet over your tank. Some people are crazy enough to like even put like black trash bags on their tank, but I don't do that because like I don't want to seal off my tank. Like the fish still need to breathe. But you can drape a sheet over your tank and just do a full blackout if it's really, really bad. But I would try cutting your photo period first. Also, manually remove as much as you can. Get in there with a toothbrush.
Which I'm curious what Zen's light, because she has that prism light. What level is your lighting, and how much have you lowered the intensity fighting the algae? Because that's where I would start, is just like basically getting it to where the plants are barely able to utilize that light.
Yeah.
Only Way says 100 mono shrimp would be $400 to $800. Yeah, they would.
Yeah, and like
that'd be the worst $400 ever spent.
When you get a mono shrimp, they're little, and your fish are going to be like, chomp, 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 expensive snack. So,
yep.
And like if you lose a cherry shrimp, well, all right, whatever, who cares? I'll just make more. But like, $8 worth of a mono shrimp with every snack.
Yeah, I can't really make more of those. Not practically, but
yeah.
All Fish, thank you for subscribing. Much appreciated. And thanks again for the super chat.
And welcome. And if you have any questions, like let us know.
So Only Way said, by wrong size, do you mean wrong tube size?
Yes. So well, I'll show you on this one because it's the same sort of principle. So the CO2 port is right here. You have to imagine this on like a big cylinder. And then the filter tubing from your outflow of your canister filter would go through here and out through here. And there's a certain like internal diameter that you need. And I bought the wrong one. And so I tried to like rig it up to get it to work, and I was not successful, and it leaked a lot. So just make sure you're buying the right one. And that's true also if you get one of these Nylock G inline ones, or
they have two sizes of those.
Yeah. One is pretty much just, I think the only company that uses that hose diameter is Eheim, I think. I've never heard of anything else using it. One is like 1/2 inch and the other is, I can't remember.
Yeah, I forget which one I have, but I use it on the Fluval 400.
Yeah, but I Google every time what hose I should buy whenever I need to buy something like this. Yep. Because I always forget. So
me too.
Make sure you buy the right one. And then it's
Passing Wind got his reactor from Aqua Rocks, Colorado. Weird name, I know. Weird name, but amazing store.
Love that store.
The best store ever.
Yeah. That's a great place to buy stuff from. They have really nice products. Yeah.
I would love to have a store local to me like that, because you go in there and it's just like floor to ceiling of all the hardscape you can think of.
But the nice thing is, like, if you want to buy something and you have questions, you can just text it through their website, and Tommy will get back to you like that. It's so fast, and he's really knowledgeable. Like, he's a really good aquascaper. And if you want to pick out rocks or wood, like, he'll send you pictures, so it kind of helps you like buy something that you might like the look of in your tank.
And he's a scaper, so he'll help you curate a good mix of hardscape.
Yeah, he's a good scaper. Like, the tanks in his warehouse look really, really good because it's his job, but like it's also his hobby. So
so Sketty's asking, water hyacinth roots have turned black. Is that bacteria? Should I do a hydrogen peroxide dip?
They kind of do turn black.
That's what Cora said. Yeah.
I wouldn't really worry about it as long as the bulbs look like squishy and green and nice. My water hyacinths right now look like crap. I think they have aphids infecting them, but I don't really care about them because, like, I mean, I really just care about the water lilies and the lotuses. They're like
Mhm.
my high dollar plants. Those are just kind of a temporary floater for me that I don't care about. But I wouldn't worry about it. Like, and they'll get like algae growing on the roots. It's just fine. They get dirt trapped in them and they do just fine. So yeah, I wouldn't worry. Wouldn't worry.
So Mike wanted to know, do you find that algae is always resultant of excess nutrients, or is it occasionally the result of insufficient nutrients?
I find it's not a question of nutrients at all. I think a lot of times algae is the question, if it's in a mature tank, is a dirty filter. That has solved so many algae problems for me. It's just cleaning my canister. Um, yeah, and in a new tank, I think it's really that you don't have a mature ecosystem yet. And there is no
Mm.
shortcut for that. You can't buy bacteria. I mean, you
Well,
can. It just you can use filter media for another tank, but it still isn't a mature
yeah,
system
it's
yet.
hard to pinpoint it to one thing because insufficient nutrients is almost like the same thing as saying too much light. And it's usually just the fact that algae can take advantage of any kind of imbalance, any deficiency or excess. Anytime the plants aren't living their best life is when algae is
Yeah.
like, I'll step in from here.
I mean, you have to think about what is most important for a plant, okay? So up here in a plant's needs hierarchy would be water, okay, not an issue for aquatic plants.
Hmm.
Light, CO2. And then way below that, we have NPKs. So nitrate being the
Hmm.
most important, phosphate being the second most important, and potassium being the third most important. And then way below that, you can't see that on the screen, so way below that, you have micronutrients. And of the micronutrients, the most important, the thing it needs the most of is iron. And then below that, it's like calcium, magnesium, boron, copper, blah, 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 all sorts of trace elements. And does it need those? Yes. But the most important things it needs are water, CO2, and light. And so if those are out of balance, that's going to be most likely to cause problems. So water isn't an issue, right? There's
Hmm.
infinite water. But CO2 and light, those are your levers you work with first for trying to solve an algae problem. Also, like not even having to do with that, hygiene, that should be your go-to also, because your fish are creating, and dead plants as they decay are creating all of these organic wastes as they rot. So they're carbon-based waste. Your plants aren't going to take that up. The only way to get rid of that is for you to remove it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's an excess or even a deficiency of nutrients that are usually the
One thing that I'm bad about is
problem.
removing that plant matter that's just kind of floating around, drifting around the spray bar, and leaves that are definitely on their way out and
Yeah.
will just decay, and they'll be trapped in the plant matter that I can't even see because
Yeah. And
like all that stuff, it dissolve like it breaks down. It's more dissolved organics.
yeah. And I'm bad about that too. But what I am good about, I'm good about water changes. And I use pre-filter sponges.
Mhm.
So I have sponges covering the intakes of my filters, and I clean those every single week. I just take them
Yeah,
off and I rinse them under the tap, squeeze them out, and
I hate them and they're nasty and ugly, but I use them on every single tank
yeah,
pretty much.
I would never have a tank without them. It keeps your filter so much cleaner because all that gunk would just go right into your filter and you would get so many like little leafy bits because I have tried to run tanks without them before and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah. And that stupid intake strainer thing on canister filters. I don't know what it's called. There's like a little ball at the entrance of it, and that thing gets clogged immediately with plant matter. I don't know. I'm sure it has a purpose that I don't understand, but screw
Yeah,
that ball.
I mean, it just doesn't keep much out. So
Yeah.
the intake sponge is totally worth it.
Went from about 50% when I started, reduced to 40, then 30. Now I'm down to about 25 now. How low can we go?
Is this water changes or?
No, this is the light intensity.
Oh, yeah. That is a really powerful light. And that's a 40 breeder, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a very deep tank. I mean, it's a geometric increase or decrease in par with every inch of increase in depth. So, and I don't know what the exact ratio is, but so it's not a linear, it's, it's a geometric increase, or it would be decrease in par.
Bring it down to 10.
Yeah. So a 40 breeder is a pretty shallow tank. And I have Fluval 3.0 and I have a lid on this. I have 2 fixtures and I started with them at I want to say 40%. And now I'm running them at 100%, but I have to say this lid is not very clean. So I'm sure it's blocking a lot of power. But your light is so much brighter than that. So much brighter. So much brighter. So
Vibes, thank you for the super sticker.
Thank you, Vibes.
And Mike, thank you for gifting a membership.
Thank you, Mike. Let's see who gets it.
Well, let me see. I have to scroll up on the other side. Well, oh man, we're like almost we are a Rico behind in chat. No, not quite. We're about 9 minutes.
We're doing our best, but you guys are chatty today, which is great. It's great.
Yes, and that went to Only Way. Congrats!
Yay! Awesome.
Only Way. If you didn't know, you can go to my membership tab, and you can scroll down. I don't know, 1 or 2 posts. There's a Google form you can go to fill out and request free plants that I will send at some point, probably in the fall. I mean, in the fall, because it's freaking hot, and I don't want to cook plants.
I mean, it's not super hot here, but in most places.
Heat advisory.
Yeah,
heat index over 100 this week.
It's 85 here, which is not bad, but yeah.
Like he says, how do I break it to my racer Nearite that is currently climbing on the glass out of the water? My snail child, you are covered with duckweed, but this ain't Halloween. Your costume isn't working. I had one in Zachary's tank that I would find sitting on top of the aqua clear. Like, why? You're just gonna dry and
yeah. I only have Clethon snails, and they do seem to stay in the tank, but they do like hanging out right at the water surface, but they don't go above it. I mean, I have some Clethon snails that are pretty big by now. They're like 3 years old, so yeah. Snails, there's no reasoning with them.
We made Whip's brain leak.
Whip just did a big filter clean out after like 5 years.
I saw that. Yeah. Well, because I remember I posted that video where I did my annual cleaning of the Fluval FX6, which I wouldn't recommend anyone wait a year to clean their canister, but that's just kind of things I have my own weird idiosyncrasies, my quirks, where I understand that they're the proper things to do, and then sometimes I do them and sometimes I don't.
I do mine twice a year, spring and fall, because I like to take it outside. So I don't want to do it in the dead of winter because it's too cold to use the hose. So, yeah.
The Offish has a question. I ordered a bigger air pump so I can run all my tanks on one air pump. How many tanks do you think is the breaking point when it's time to get a linear piston or membrane pump?
I don't know. I don't use air for my tanks, so I'm not a good person to ask. I do know that like I think that after maybe 20 tanks or something, like you really should get a linear piston air pump because it's so much quieter.
Yeah, there's going to be a certain point where you're like, holy crap, it's loud in here. And those little diaphragm pumps, that diaphragm mechanism wears out so fast. And I don't know if it wears out even faster if you're pushing more tanks or if it's more about back pressure or what.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think if I had, I think if I was running like maybe 10 tanks, I'd probably just go with the linear piston air pump, just the weakest one they've got.
I've never heard of anyone regretting
Right.
buying one who's got one. I just I'm not a fish breeder, so I have 3 tanks, so I don't use air pumps at all. They're just not my jam. But maybe someone in the chat can help you. Like if Peplin Creek Aquatics is in the chat or Foxy's Fishes, they probably know more than we would.
Valid point. Only way some CO2 reactors produce CO2 by mixing sugar and yeah. When I'm talking about CO2 reactor, I always mean, well, I hopefully I probably say the wrong thing sometimes, but I want to mean the kind that are diffusing the injected CO2.
They're dissolving the CO2 into the water
Right.
column. I think that maybe saying CO2 generators would be
Yeah, sometimes I think I've said like CO2 reaction chamber. Like I always forget what the hell they're called. Yeah, CO2 generator.
Yeah, but reactors, yeah, they're fancy. I mean, they're not even really that fancy. They're just a cylinder of water. Whether you make it, whether you buy one or you make one out of PVC pipe that you close off both ends of, it's just a cylinder that has a lot of space that allows the bubbles to passively diffuse into. That's all it is.
Some of us are very specific about our tube size. Tube size is very important.
It's important.
Whip, have you killed all the plants?
Whip, how is your peace lily doing? If you send it to me, I'll rehab it for you. I'll make it live again.
He said my heart turned black, as has my thumb.
Oh, Whip, you have a sweetheart. We don't believe it for an instant. But your thumb is black. Like I'm gonna agree with you on that.
Jenna just trolling me. Does Kelly recommend cleaning your canister more than once a year? What if you build your stand to just barely exactly fit the canister?
You know what? We've all made mistakes, Jenna, and we would all have things that we would do over again if it were easy.
Like a sump instead of.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I had a sump, I would clean it probably once a month because it would be so easy.
It'd be right there. All the media, you just reach in and grab it.
I mean, I've seen people having like their 5-year-old daughters helping them clean their sump. Like, how nice would that be? Just like something I could do on my own that I didn't have to lift or haul outside. It would be great.
So Mike says, hypothetically, if you could pick one nutrient, excluding carbon, that was always the perfect level in your tank, so you never had to worry about it, which one would you pick?
I mean, I don't think there are any. I have to add fertilizer all the time.
I
fertilize every day. It's a closed system.
I almost would say iron, just because of how annoying it is, like the different chelations and their solubility and pH. I mean, you don't need a lot of iron, but everything else just seems kind of like easy, like mindlessly easy.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Like, I don't think that hard about fertilizing. I use an all-in-one and I just add it. And I fertilize every day. When I feed the fish, I also feed the plants. So every day I feed the fish, which once in a while I forget. I probably forget once a week. But every day I feed the fish, I feed the plants. Then I don't have to think about it. If I were like technologically minded, which I'm not, I would put an auto dosing pump on there and then I would never think about it. So
I'm thinking about doing that. on not
There's-
all the tanks, but just maybe one.
Are there shrimp or snails that will eat any of that rotting leaf matter? Like all of them will.
Yeah, shrimp for sure. It's just like, how many shrimp will it take to devour one piece of hygrophila leaf
Yeah.
versus like when I have 20, 30 species of plants and they're all shedding a leaf or two.
Right. And how many snails do I want to have? I mean, I'm pro snail. I don't
2
kill.
per gallon.
I mean, I don't kill my snails. Like, I'm pro snail, but I don't want 1,000 snails in my tank of ram's horn snails. So I don't want to overfeed them. So it's better if I remove some of that.
I mean, I have a few tanks where I'm like, eat, 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 because I need all the snails to populate. Because
Well, you have a buffer.
yeah, well, I have 3. I have 3
Right,
buffers.
3 buffers.
I'm
I don't have
breeding
any
for 3.
buffers, so I don't want to overfeed too much. But I have a good population of snails. I mean, which is good because Jake likes them so much better than my fancy rainbow fish. It's like, oh, you've got a good healthy snail population.
So Zen and Mike would pick phosphate. That's a good one. I have phosphate in my water already in a small amount.
I have a small amount of that too, but I also have a lot of plants and I have a lot of immersed plants.
That helps.
And so they are sucking all of that phosphate out. And so if I don't add it, I won't have it. I mean, there's probably some phosphates in fish food, but it's not enough.
So Oinky asked, other than the Fluval series, do you have a favorite canister filter brand? I've only used Fluval, so I can't speak for the rest of the brands.
I've used Fluvals. I've used Eheims. They're fine. Right now, I also have 2 Oazas. I have the Thermomasters, and I do like them. There's things I like and dislike about them. So with the Fluval FX ones, I like how you plug them in and they just work. You don't have to prime them. You don't have to like push on a little thing to get them to go. They just work. And I really like that. However, with these Awaza Thermomasters, they have an inline, like, well, not even inline, like an onboard heater. And I love that. And though I think that the reason why those heaters haven't died, there's nothing special about them. They're just ordinary heaters. But I think the reason why heaters are prone to fail is because when we do water changes, they're above the water. And even though they don't dry out all the way, like that change in temperature fluctuation, I think it creates stress to the materials and it causes them to break. Whereas having a heater that's like constantly submerged in the water of your filter in a nice little comfy environment that doesn't change, it gives them so much more longevity, is my theory. I have no way to test that. I'm not an engineer. So I really do like them. They have this like integrated pre-filter sponge. I don't like it. I don't think it works the way it's supposed to work. Because when I clean out the canister, you would think that the onboard like pre-filter section would be gunkier than the main filter, but it's just the opposite.
Is it too porous? Like,
No, I don't know. I don't know why it is, but so it just doesn't quite work right for me. But some people really like that. But I use pre-filter sponges on my intake, so it doesn't matter to me. But some people really like that feature. I just don't care. Also, I find it really hard to slide the thing over and get it out. Like, I don't really have a lot of hand strength. And Oinky, I'm assuming, also doesn't have that much.
Y'all should arm wrestle at the Clash.
We should. I mean,
So we're still behind in chat, but I looking at the bottom of the chat and saw a very nice comment from Andrew Day. Said, new here and new to the hobby. I just wanted to thank you two for what you do. This channel has been a big help.
Oh,
And that's
well,
why we're here.
We're glad to have you. And if you have any questions or comments, please join the chat. Or if
Indeed.
you just want to make fun of Mike, do that too.
Mike trolling is welcome. He likes to troll us with questions. So what is this question now? When I get BBA in my tank, it tends to be in high flow areas on sprayers or near power heads. Any idea why increased flow might promote BBA?
I have noticed that also.
Yeah, I don't know either, but yeah,
And,
my spray bars, even this one tank behind me is there's like little tufts of BBA just swaying.
I mean, I would not use that as a reason to turn down your flow too much, because plants really like flow as long as they're not getting blasted to the point where they can't stay rooted. Plants do like flow, and they need adequate circulation to bring them nutrients and CO2 and to kind of clean the algae off of them. But I have also noticed that, and I don't know why. I think that they like the circulation, and they are able to form, I guess they'd be called like hold fasts to inorganic matter like plastic or glass or rock or whatever. They're able to anchor there and proliferate. But I have also seen that, and I don't know why. There's a lot we don't know about why algae grows. It's a lot of speculation. This is very hard to do side-by-side experiments with it.
Let's see. Cora said all you got to do to reduce light is add floaters. Yeah, that's how the mosh pit works. It's just tons and tons of floaters.
Yeah.
And then even this tank, I have duckweed, and I give up. So it's got duckweed.
I am no good at growing duckweed. Even in my ponds, I can't grow it. I have about 1 teaspoon of duckweed in one pond, and I just left it because I'm like, well, whatever. What's going to happen? Nothing. I can't proliferate duckweed.
Let's see. Only Way said, I have enough plants. Do you want free plants from me instead? Depends on what you have. I mean, I got the collectoritis, something new I haven't tried yet.
We're always looking to trade.
But yeah, like Jenna said, there's a magnet option too if you just want to let the fish magnet.
And one of the magnets is Fat Kitty. And maybe one of the members of chat will show you where the Fat Kitty emoji is, because he's a very important mascot of this channel. In fact.
Oh.
He was asleep.
And now he's awake, and he is unhappy. Stop.
Say hi to everyone.
That face.
How you doing, Fat Kitty? No.
Oh, he's not protesting too much. Just
Tiny Kitty was meowing.
Oh, that wasn't okay. Yeah,
that was Tiny Kitty.
Yeah, he seemed fine.
Jake made the cats. So at this grocery store in Indiana called Meijer. I don't think you guys have Meijers, but they have these like, instead of reusable grocery bags, they're boxes that fold up and they have handles. And Jake bought a bunch of those for like groceries and laundry. And he had a towel in them, and they're like exactly cat sized, and they make him so happy because they fit his fat little body into like a perfect little cat loaf.
Nice.
He loves that. So it was like $3 to make him really happy.
I think Zen already Googled it, but are Clethons the horn neorites? Yes.
Yes, they're the horned ones. Yeah. And they are really, really good algae eaters for like spotted green spot algae. They do a really good job keeping your tank clean.
Dr. Awesome, howdy y'all. Stuck in bed here with COVID. No.
Well, get some rest. I've heard the latest really sucks. I'm sorry. That sucks.
Man.
No fun. No fun. The new vaccines don't come out till the fall, so
Well, crap.
no. All right. Any recommendations for snails that will survive in soft water with high CO2, meaning high carbonic acid levels? None. I mean,
The ones that dissolve slower would be the harder shell ones. Like I think Clethons and Neorites
yeah,
can handle it a lot longer than a than like a pond snail or a
but
ram's horn.
yeah, I don't know why I'm getting all like blurry all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
it's autofocusing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your plants are too red behind you now, like that sword. It just wants to focus on that.
I have heard that I do not have soft water. I have never had soft water, but I have heard from the people who are out in Maryland in the clubs out there, the DC clubs. So, what is it called? Guapa, Greater Washington Area Plant Association. Those guys know how to grow plants. And they all have very, very low pH water that you just have to buy. If you want to have those neorites, you have to buy new ones every now and again because they just
Yeah.
won't live. So I would say not to buy them at all because I don't want to keep an organism that's going to be miserable or in pain. I mean, and mine have at the cage I have, they are growing just fine. I mean, some of them have gotten really big. Their shells are not beautiful, like they're kind of dinged up, but they're happy, they're growing, they've lived several years. So I would just say that, if you're living the low cage lifestyle with CO2, maybe snails are just not a thing you're going to have.
Yeah.
Which would make some people happy.
We have some, like Jenna said, we have some really large pest snails and CO2 tanks that are alive. I have taken some out to feed the puffer before, and they are like the thin and crispy shell. Like you think that they're intact, but if those shells are disturbed at all, they collapse. It's kind of a sad.
Is that are those in your tanks you use RO water in?
No, and just
Yeah.
in like the CO2
Okay.
injected ones. I don't.
Yeah.
I
I
just
think
have RO water in the bowl, and I don't have anything
yeah,
in the bowl.
yeah, I think that if you have RO water, it's going to be a lot worse.
Right, because you're
It's going to be
starting
a
with
lot
like a
worse.
neutral
Yeah.
to acidic pH, and then
Yeah.
you're lowering even further.
Yeah. And my snails are always going to look better than yours, even though our KH is the same. I have more GH than you do. My GH out of the tap is like 6.
Well, I mean, I add GH to all my tanks
Right.
too.
But
Like
you don't add 6 degrees of GH, do you?
depends on the tank.
Okay. Well,
Between 4 and 10, like guppy tank closer to 10. And also
oh, I didn't know that.
I'm not precise at all when I measure the powder out because it just
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So like, sometimes I might overdo it and like, oh, this one's 8, and then I'll skip the
Yeah.
GH during that water change and bring it down.
So Whip says that his peace lily is on the struggle bus. If I knew how to send it to you, I would. But even if that was possible, it would cost me $1,000. If you bring it to the Clash, I will take it home and care for it, and then I can drop it off to you when I'm going to Madison sometime because we go through Chicago all the time to go to Madison. So if you want me to take care of it and get it back to health, we could do that. Or I could even deliver it to you at the following Clash. But I do go through Chicago quite a bit because I'm really not that far from Chicago. I'm only a couple hours away. So if you want to do that, that's an option. But it's up to you. But I know that plant is really special to you.
Yeah, and he said the other plants aren't doing so well either.
Yeah, I mean, RO water, man. You're a candidate. You're a candidate for RO water. That's tough.
Let's see.
So, Juanita says that her angelfish love crushed bladder snails. A lot of fish do. But
Quarries love it
I
too.
don't have the heart to squish them. I just can't do it. Also, it would horrify Jake. I'm
yeah.
too soft.
So Benjamin asked, is that a live shot of the puffer tank now? No, it's just a looped recording. It's easier to do
Yeah.
that way.
Where Steven's desk is, like if he were to have no green screen, you would see his bed.
You'd see the bed, you'd see the tank in the distance. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this is my I'm streaming at my dining room table, so this is live because it's an actual comfortable place to stream from. So I don't need a green screen. But if we were in my office, you would be just seeing a shelf of junk, which is not very attractive. So
Let's see. Looking for the next question. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't skip any, but Zen was asking, a 55-gallon, heavily planted, but all slow growers like Anubias and Bulbitis and no CO2, why would phosphates continue to climb with 50% water changes weekly other than food? Food is a big contributor.
yeah, and the thing is like plant waste also has phosphates in it as it decays. Food, fish waste all has phosphates. And if your plants aren't using it up, but I would also question how accurate your phosphate test is, maybe. Might not
They're
be.
not the most accurate.
Yeah.
So 0.25, that's probably the minimum it can detect.
Yeah. I guess
But it's probably not using a lot of phosphate to begin with. So like if you keep adding that same amount, I don't know. And plus the food is the biggest contributor of phosphate for me.
Right. So it's good to not, there are a lot of reasons not to overfeed your fish. And this is another one of them. And I know it's fun to overfeed fish because they look hungry.
I'm still gonna.
Oh, I know you're so well, and Steven has a lot fatter fish than I
Yeah.
do. I don't feed near as much as him, so yeah. But you could cut your feeding a little bit, maybe, and see if that helps. But it's not fun to do that.
This is a great question. Why are all my Java plants just slowly passing away?
Poor Java birds. They really do like CO2. I mean, they won't die without CO2, but whenever anyone says that they're an easy plant that doesn't need CO2, they never have good looking Java ferns without
Right. CO2. They're easy if you're okay with them looking kind of sad and almost
sad.
like they're on the verge of death.
Yeah, whereas like other plants, I think can look really good without CO2. Your KH is not particularly low there, I know, so that doesn't help. But like Vallisneria, it looks pretty good without CO2, and it slows it down a bit, which is nice. But Java fern, I don't think it looks that good without CO2. It looks so good with it. It gets so big and full and lush. So
I'm about to have to throw away a bunch of Java fern because it has the freaking what is it called? The galls on it.
Oh.
You ever seen those or heard of those?
I haven't seen those. Will you put a picture of that on Discord?
I will. It is so 2 Hour Aquarist has an article on it. Because if you post it on Facebook, nobody knows what you're talking about, and they're like, that's how they reproduce. It's like, no, they don't cluster up like this and cause a leaf to twist and deteriorate. This is something different.
Is it a virus?
I think it is a fungus, or I'd have to read again.
Because there are galls caused by viruses. There are galls caused by fungi. There are galls caused by parasitic wasps. There are lots of things that cause the galling response in plants. So interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see that, but that sucks. But like, I know that usually like the only cure for that is to just cut it out and throw it out.
If you can, it doesn't survive very long without a host. So if you can remove all your Java fern and like that's what I'm going to try to do, because Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no cure for it.
And you
I
have
will get some
yeah.
pictures. I will post them on Discord today.
Yeah. I mean, you have Java ferns and other tanks that are presumably healthy, so you
Hmm.
can always repopulate. But to Juanita, I would say I have lived the hard water lifestyle. CO2 does help, but I would say that I never had great looking Java ferns until I moved someplace that had lower pH water. And I
Yeah.
also inject CO2. They just never look that good. Like, so when they say Java fern's an easy plant, I don't really believe it.
Syncytium stackite. I don't know.
Oh, that's the gall. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, it was first described as a pathogen of Stachys crenata in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. It's probably in
Crown
there.
zero.
So, and that is a fungus.
Yeah,
You know, I wonder if it also infects like a lot of the epiphytic ferns that grow in trees where you live. Because you live
I
in a
wonder.
humid, hot climate, and there are lots of those. Like you have the, like the tillandsia. That's not a fern, but you have the tillandsia growing. You know, the Spanish moss
Hmm.
growing from your trees. There, we don't have that up here. Like the frost would kill all of that. There's no epiphytic. When I'm not going to say there's no epiphytic plants like that, but it's pretty. It's not the norm. Yeah, that sucks.
Vibes, thanks for the super chat again. Is there a recipe for BBA duckweed cottage cheese?
Worst
You
smoothie ever, but very good for you, but
oof.
very disgusting.
What's the nutritional value of blackbeard algae?
I think it's probably got a lot of fiber in it, but I doubt you can digest it. So it's probably just fiber. I
Oof.
just bought, so on Prime Day, I'd wanted one for years. I finally bought one. I bought a Vitamix blender, just one of
Mm,
those like super high powered blenders. And my
nice.
smoothie game has just gone up. It's so nice. So I could make a BBA duckweed cottage cheese smoothie, but I
Do
won't.
it. I think Vibes should do that.
I think Vibe should do it. I don't have any BBA for one. I just don't get BBA. I get other algae, but I don't
I'll
get
send anyone who needs BBA, I'll send it to you. It'll just be disgusting when it arrives, I'm sure.
the only thing worse than BBA is rotting BBA. Gross. Oh,
Outside in, thanks for becoming a member. And yeah, there's the plant form
yeah,
to get some
I love the
plants and or a
form.
magnet.
And I don't recognize that name. So,
His name is Kyle.
Kyle, pleased to make your
And he
acquaintance.
does a stream. And I don't
Awesome.
remember what day because I'm a slave to the notifications and I click. So
I know. I
but
you know,
it's
I
on the
just
calendar.
haven't been in many streams lately. I don't know why. It just hasn't
Sometimes
happened.
life gets in
Sometimes,
the way,
yeah,
you get
sometimes it does.
sidetracked on other stuff.
And I mean, there's summer vacations, and I am gonna take at least one, if not two more vacations this summer. I'm gonna I think the third week of August, I'm gonna go to northern Michigan to the UP with my sister's family because they have a cabin up there. And I didn't see them at Christmas because of COVID.
Mm.
So I'm going to go spend a week with them. And then I think Jake and I are going to go away over Labor Day for a couple days. So gotta get my vacations in. But I'm also going to the Clash. So the Clash, I've
Speaking,
got my room. Oh,
thanks for
where
being a
you go?
member, Kenny, for 31 months. What events will we be going to this year? This year, it's just the Keystone Clash. We did a family trip. Jenna went to Disney for a travel agency thing. She's
Yeah.
taking another Disney trip with her mother, who didn't get to go
Oh,
on our last family Disney trip. So
nice. Oh,
it'll
that
just be the Clash. Then
yeah.
we'll see next year because I really want to get to Wisconsin and I want to do because the Cataclysm is next year and then the barbecue they're doing the barbecue every 2 years. So I
Yeah,
think
I can't make it out to Wisconsin this year just because I'm going to the UP instead to see my family. But I might go. I mean, it's like For me to get to where Foxy and Peplin live is like 7 hours of driving. And also, here's the thing. I cannot just go to see them. If I go through Madison, Wisconsin, and I don't see family, I am a bad aunt. Like, there's no walking back from that. So I would have to like have enough time to do both.
Yeah.
So, but I am going to the UP. So.
Let's see. Scrolling, because man, we really got a Rico behind. It's crazy because like there's only been like 30 something people here the whole time, but I don't think we've ever been this behind in chat.
Yeah, I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
Horrorwork says Kelly likes the horny snails.
Me too. They don't leave as many sesame seeds behind.
I love them. I love Cleathon snails.
Coro says, can you do a test where you take RO water and like a sponge filter and add fish food and see what tests out of it over time? I could. There's a lot more that I can't test for that comes out of fish food.
Yeah, and a lot of that is organic waste.
Yeah. Which
your plants will not use, but bacteria love it.
But yeah, I'm sure like there'll be ammonia if it's not cycled, and there'll probably be phosphates, and I guess food has some amount of
because it's got protein, so it's got nitrates, it's got phosphates, it's got potassium, it has salt in it. I mean,
I could just get some expired flakes and just like dump a crap ton into it and just see what comes out of that. That'll be. I'm gonna have to do that outside so it doesn't stink up the house.
It's gonna stink a lot, and the thing that people don't realize is they're like, "Oh, I just fertilize with fish food." Well, that's not the best way for your plants to take up those nutrients. It's not bioavailable until it rots. It's just like you can't just dump like your dinner scraps in your yard and expect your plants to do well. Like it has to compost first, which is rotting. So, I don't ever recommend overfeeding as a way to feed your plants. It's not good for your fish, and it's not great for your plants.
Right. So RO water is being considered, says Whip, but he has a 210, 2 150s, a 130, a 120, a 90, and a 65 high, and a 35 cube. But then he said he would likely only have plants in one of the 90s, the 130, and the 35.
Yeah, so don't do it in every tank, because like your cichlid tanks and your monster fish tanks, like you're probably not going to have great plants in those anyways, because your fish are going to tear them up. But at your community tank, maybe just do that one, because you have a community tank, right? Whip would do that.
And he would just need a standard 4-stage RO filter, right?
I mean, I'm not an expert in RO, but I would think that would be just fine. The thing that
it doesn't have to make the water perfect. It just needs
to make it better.
Yeah.
It just needs to knock about 75% of the crap out. And that would get you in a good place, because you're not trying to grow Rotella wallichii. You're just trying to grow a Rotella.
We'll get you there though, Whip. A few years from now, you'll be.
It's true. You'll be like, what do I even care about these monster fish for?
You'll be like, here's my Aerocolin tank.
I know. He'll be like, oh, I just want tiny tetras and Aerocolins. It'll be like Whip Master Aquascaper.
So Scotty says, pink flamingo is starting to melt. What should I do? Is it done already?
It's just what it does.
Last week I was like, I'm going to do weekly pink flamingo updates and take pictures. And guess what I forgot to do? But here's the update. I don't see nothing. It's all gone except the roots down there. So we'll see.
Scotty, I would just say that crypts melt. It's what they do. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It may come back. However, it's a pink flamingo, so it may not.
Yeah, like Zen said, scream at it. Tell it Kelly
There you
thinks it's
go.
stupid. It worked for me.
Have Zen scream at it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just may crypts melt. It's what they do. However, and there's nothing you can do. But I would say if you have been moving it around, stop doing that. Like you need to find a place for it and never move it ever again. Don't
That's
move
my
it.
plan. But yeah.
And that doesn't suit everyone's personality. Like Brooklyn, it's not for her.
Well, I don't. I would move it if it were anything else, but I know better. And
Yeah.
if I have any hope of any of them surviving, it's just leave them alone.
Some plants just don't want to be moved. Like Crenum calamostratum doesn't want to be moved.
Right.
But yeah, so Scotty, I would say do nothing. Try to avoid temperature swings, try to keep the water clean, do water changes. If you're not doing water changes, do water changes. And you have a sink now. So water changes are now easy. But yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Jenna has observed next week
I
is the
know.
100th Wet Your Plants.
We're gonna have to plan something. And Steven and I are not great at planning.
We'll talk about it and hopefully remember by the next week.
Someone will have to remind us. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Don't commit that false dichotomy, Kelly. We can love tetras and cichlids at the same time.
show. You can have tetras with your angelfish. You can have tetras with your discus. There you go. You can have a Mambuna tank and a tetra tank. You can have it all, but maybe not all in the same tank. What is Danikin says, Kelly, just put them in a Ziploc bag and let the hammer fly. I don't know what you're oh, we were talking about snails. No, I don't like to kill. No, I'm not going to unnecessarily kill life forms that are just existing and hurting nothing.
Well, that's the beauty of puffers is that I don't have to crush the snails. And in fact, it's better if I don't and let them crunch through them.
And these snails are hurting nothing. And they are eating up excess food and they're eating up decaying leaves and they're living their lives. I don't need to kill them. It's not like a mosquito who is making me miserable.
99 Wet Your Plants on the web. Take one down, pass it around.
Oh.
Holy crap. I reached the bottom of the chat and I don't know if I missed a question because I was more focused on getting to the bottom of the chat because it stresses me out when I'm not.
Corawork says Kelly is a shill for big CO2. I am a shill for big CO2.
Me too.
I am. So speaking of CO2, apparently CO2 prices have gone up because it was like about $1.50 a pound for me to get CO2, and now it's like $2 a pound. So it was $40 before tax for me to fill my 20-pound cylinder, which is still a good deal, but that's great.
Wonder if ours has gone
prices
up.
have gone up. Yeah. I mean, it takes me a long time to go through 20 pounds of CO2, or not 20 pounds, sorry, 10 pounds of CO2. So, yeah.
I've been writing down now when I get my canisters filled because I've been forgetting. So like the 5-pound in the living room, granted that one's been kind of inconsistent, but I got it filled in November and then again, I think in June or July. And I think that's actually too long. That means I need to, because it's an 40 breeder.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A few months is good though.
I know. So Corawork says, like, if the idea is feeding more than the fish will eat is the problem, and it's not like determining what the fish use and what the fish pass through. I mean, there's part of that, but like, you know, a lot of fish food goes uneaten because it just falls into the substrate, and your cories don't necessarily, or your loaches or whatever bottom feeders you have don't get to it. So, you know, what's going to happen to that fish food? Some of it goes into snails. Some of it just rots. And
and that's when the planaria take over. They love that.
they do. So, just don't think it's great to overfeed. But it is.
Yeah, I mean, I do not overfeed because I guarantee you every scrap of food, or at least like the vast majority of it, gets eaten.
Well, you have
Because
rainbows.
Yeah,
There's no top end to what they'll eat. And they will dive down to the
yes, they do.
substrate and they will bottom feed. There is like this myth that rainbows won't do that, but they do it all the time. Every species of rainbow I've kept will do it.
They're not snobs. They're not just gonna like watch a
No.
scrap of food pass by, like, well, it's down there. Screw that.
Yeah, they're not picky eaters either. I've never found a food that a rainbow isn't really excited about. They just love to
They'll at
eat.
least try it.
They love to eat.
So Nathan said, I accidentally left an Anubias out of water for 20-ish minutes and the leaves sort of dried up. What are my odds it'll be okay?
How is the rhizome? So anything that got totally dried up, I would just cut off. You could use scissors or a razor blade or whatever. Just cut it off. And I have trimmed off every single leaf from a rhizome and
Same.
of Anubias, and it's come back. Now, if the rhizome dried out too, then it's probably not coming back. But Anubias is pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, put it back in water, see what those leaves look like. If it looks like they're going to deteriorate, just cut them out.
Yeah.
But I know some people actually will take their Anubias and Boost out and expose it to air just to kind of help fight the algae, like, because the plant can tolerate the air more than algae. I don't know, I'd be afraid because there is a threshold where,
I mean, the thing is like it needs to be in a humid environment or it's really unhappy. You can grow Anubias in a terrarium, but I have found it's very difficult to transition it from submersed to immersed life. So you need to like mist it with a humidifier or something. It's a little tricky.
Your message got through, Oinky. Have a good night.
Good night, Oinky. We love you.
Matt M says, I feel like I have to overfeed to properly feed Corydoras. Oh, hell yeah. That's one reason for overfeeding is because the rainbows will dive down and get that food. So
I would agree. I don't have a ton of Corys. I have a small handful of them in this tank, and that's it. I have a couple little loaches. I don't really have a ton of bottom feeding fish. They've kind of aged out over the years. I probably should next time Dan has more Hillstream loaches in stock, get some more of them. I think I only have one left. And he would probably like some friends. And I like those fish. So
either Dan will get them in stock or Zen will bring her Hillstream numbers back up because
I know
they're already breeding.
She was going to send me some, but then that horrible derecho happened and the power outage, and it was so sad. So if they come back and, the weather cools off to not hell sort of levels, I would like some. I would like some. So.
And thanks again, Vibes, for another super chat. You don't have to super chat us to ask questions, FYI, but
that's right.
Appreciate it.
We love you for you, Vibes. So FX4 with VCA random flow generator output would be good for a 20 saltwater aquariums. Or is there another way to set up an FX4 for a 20 gallon? Whoo, that is going to be a lot of flow. I am not a saltwater expert. I know they need a lot of flow. I'm sorry I can't help you more with that. If Mike is in the chat, maybe Mike can give you some advice. Mike, are you in the chat? Help Vibes out. Because Mike keeps saltwater tanks.
I just want to see what that looks like on at full blast on a 20.
Yeah, Zenny has done a lot of research on saltwater tanks, though she hasn't set up hers yet. So maybe she would know.
Do you see horses like that kind of flow? I feel like they would be very delicate.
But they still live in tidal zones. I mean, the flow is incredible in the ocean. Even in the calmer parts have so much flow.
Plus, they link tails; they can hold on.
They do, and the macroalgae has holdfasts, which is it's almost like a cement it secretes to anchor to rock. So I can't help you. I know that would be a fuck ton of flow.
Mm-hmm. Larry D says he removed Nubius for about 20 minutes, killed BBA, and plant did fine. Nice.
Nice.
And Outside In said, thanks for the shout out. I'm like 15 minutes behind. So were we.
So are we. I'm always behind when I listen to streams. I don't think my internet is that good. I'm always like more than a minute behind chat, which is why when Rico was doing the Pokemons, I just gave up because
you
I'm
just have to
always
have
behind.
exclamation catch just queued up in the chat.
I know, and I'm always on a phone too because I don't use my laptop to stream ever. But by the way, Rico, I miss you. Miss you. I know you started streaming a little bit again, but it's never enough. It's never enough.
All right. So Matt M reminded me that I forgot to do a thing, and because he suggested this podcast. So I like out of sight, out of mind is my issue. So I just pulled that up on my phone so that when I open my browser on my phone next time, it's gonna be right there and it's gonna remind me.
What?
Watercolors Aquarium Gallery podcast.
I've never heard of it. What's it about? Is it just?
I don't remember, but I like podcasts.
I love podcasts.
I like people talking, so I don't have to think.
I like podcasts. I listen to a lot of gardening podcasts. There just aren't many aquarium podcasts. Maybe I should do a podcast. Like, maybe I should get in that space. I don't know.
I think Rebecca.
Then you can see my tank.
I think Rebecca was thinking about doing one too. I like Science Bait's podcast for aquariums would be the shit.
It would.
I would listen all the time.
Yeah. I've thought about doing a science podcast, but it wouldn't be necessarily for aquariums. But I don't know. It is like it's a lot of work to do those. Like, it did used to be a full-time job for me to lecture. Like, it takes time.
Right, because you don't have a chat to bounce off of.
I think it would take less time to do a podcast than it would to do a stream because I don't have to worry about slides or visual aids. And I am really great at just talking a lot, maybe too much, some would argue. But it does help to fill a podcast. So, yeah. Ultimately, I don't think I'd want to do it alone. It's not very fun.
Mm.
So, someone suggested that Jake and I should do a podcast together, a science podcast.
That's not a bad idea.
The
physics to your biology.
True. I don't know when we would do it. Also, could we do a podcast without swearing?
Why do you need to do that?
I guess we wouldn't. And I don't think we could.
And also, if it's a
than I do.
Yeah. If it's a podcast, it doesn't matter when you do it because it's pre-recorded. So, like, if a time pops up at like 11 p.m. Friday night and you want to record it, might as well.
We could do them all over Christmas break. We could just like record 10 podcasts. I don't know.
Ugh.
But we would probably want to keep it kind of topical.
Right. And so it's searchable.
Yeah. And relevant to new research and stuff that people have questions about. So, I don't know. But it has been suggested that I do a podcast and then I do one with Jake. Because Jake is also, he's a good teacher. He's a good talker.
Mm-hmm.
So
Chris Howell said, have enough information on our streams. We could turn the streams into podcasts. What I've been trying to do, I've done a couple so far, is mostly it's just you talking, but I
No.
clip something out. Well, you have the science, you have the explanations, and they're like perfectly laid out, and they're perfect for short form content.
I
So
know, and every time like the algorithm feeds me up on one of those, I'm like, click away. I don't want to listen to myself talk. Oh God, no. But I have noticed you've done that. Do they get views? I mean,
they're about as all over the place as any other short, where
yeah,
there
yeah.
is no rhyme or reason. It's
There
not
is
it's
not
not merit
necessarily.
based or quality
No,
based. It's yeah.
no. But I'm hoping that maybe it reaches a different audience, trying to get good quality, scientifically based information to people because this hobby has a lot of misinformation in it.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to be a light in the darkness over here. So,
Well, this is a pretty funny comment. Scotty says, I don't know how to listen to a podcast because I no longer have an iPod.
Scotty, like
This is your science stream.
your phone, like you can listen to it on your phone.
Nope. Only iPods play podcasts.
I mean, I don't have an Android, but like if you look at my phone, like here's a little app. See how
Spotify's got them. YouTube's got them.
podcasts, like I go to Apple Podcasts and I
Yep.
click it, and oh look, there's Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. It's a podcast.
And Sketty also misses your live streams.
Oh, that's nice of you. I mean, I did enjoy doing them, and I think they were of value, but it's not fun to do a live stream by yourself.
Hmm.
And I mean, I do like interacting with the chat. And I think that you and I do a really good job of interacting with the chat. We don't just yammer and ignore the chat. Like we try to, we
Yeah.
don't get to every comment, but we do a good job. So, but it's not very fun to not have a co-host. So if I had a co-host and that co-host were Zenny, I would do
It's a
it
great
again.
suggestion.
Isn't it? It has to be the right co-host. It has
Poor
to be
Zenny.
someone who's kind of like a science geek and I'm not saying you have to be a scientist, but you have to kind of really like science.
Yeah. And know what questions to ask, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, so you would need to like help me interact with the chat, and you would have to like chat with me and have a good time. So I don't know. Maybe I will bring it back. The other thing is, it was a lot of work because I put all those slides together, and I'd forgotten because I haven't been a professor for 5 years how much work it was to put a lecture together.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, that's a lot of work. It's like my talks for the Keystone Clash. Those took me like to do 2 talks. I want to say it took me like 4 hours to put those together, which is not bad. 4 hours to put together 2 hours of talking. It's not really that bad, but it takes time. That's why I was exhausted when I was a professor. it was a lot of time.
Whip said, "What happened? What the hell happened to Brooklyn anyway? Did her house say enough already and just eat her? She's around. She might even be lurking now. Just been busy life,
She's busy.
She's definitely, getting her home
renovating the
renovations
house.
done.
Yeah.
Got to do all the mom things too, because like Brogan's got
Summer.
band camp and
Summer's a
things.
busy mom time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Plus, like she has to take kids back and forth to their step parent or to their other parents. That's a lot of work. So
Yeah, but
is she
I
thinking of
got.
coming to the Clash or?
I hope so. I mean, it's kind of it probably financial based, but also maybe timing based. I mean, that I
Yeah,
know she
it's a
wants to.
hard
So
time because like she has to have. I mean, her kids are a little older, but it's not like she can leave them
yeah,
unsupervised.
And Al, yeah, anyone heard from Alex? I know he had that infection,
Yeah,
really
I
bad
saw
infection on his
that.
like, uh,
Alex.
God, yeah,
God, I mean, Alex, if you're watching by any chance, just my heart goes out to you. I wish you a speedy recovery, and I just wish you so much more good health. You have had so many health scares, and that's really, really terrifying. So
hmm.
please get well soon. Oof.
Fox says, "Am I being shunned because Kelly knows I have a Madagascar lace plant and a 5-gallon?" That poor lace plant.
Well, I mean, you know what? It probably will outgrow it eventually. I mean, it's not with CO2, so your
Mhm.
water is kind of soft. I would probably move it. You guys have other tanks. You could move it. I could
Maybe
give
she
you
doesn't
some
want to
small
jinx it.
plants. Could give you some small plants. So Larry D asks, how old do mascara barbs need to be before breeding begins? I am the wrong person to ask. I am a terrible fish breeder and I've never had mascara barbs, but they're really cool.
Same. Don't know.
You're a better fish breeder than I am, but you've also never had mascara barbs. Maybe
Right.
someone
Never
in the
bred
chat,
barbs.
maybe someone in the chat will know. So they're really pretty though. They look
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm hungry and I got work to do. And we went 15 minutes more than I had planned to. So I think we should probably cut it now.
I'm really hungry. Yeah. It's but thank you to our members and our new members. Thank you so much for joining up. Thank you to our super chatters. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you to all of you for asking your questions and for being here.
Hell
We're
yeah.
so grateful for your participation. Thank you to our lurkers. Thank you to our amazing mods. Replay crew, shout out. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you all next week.
Indeed. For 100. Bye.
Woo! Will we remember? Who can say?
Yeah.